Invisible kids can't be hidden forever. Meghan and Harry are horrified that this secret is being sought after by the public. King Charles stood still when he lost £100 million. Harry and Meghan supposedly are going to be working together with Chanel in 2024 as part of a £90 million deal. Oh, come on, relax, friends. This is a big fat lie. And I'm not sure if they're going to be starring together in the remake of the film Titanic. Now, the point I'm trying to make is this. I can only repeat what I have been told by a couple of members of the royal household and also by a staff member at Kensington Palace. I'm in regular contact with a few different journalists in London, two of whom write a weekly column in a national newspaper, but these people are incredibly careful about what they say. Now, years ago, I was interviewed by a Fleet Street journalist. We were talking over lunch, and I agreed that the conversation could be recorded. This is actually standard practice. It saves the journalist from writing down notes as we were speaking. And at the end of the meal, he decided to turn off the tape recorder, and we talked off record, as he referred to it. And then later on, I was horrified when the article was printed. It included that off-the-record information that I had offered him. And I learned a valuable lesson from all this. Reporters are not your friends, so you've got to be so careful what you tell them. And I remember this every single time I have a meeting with a journalist who's going to use some words to improve an interesting article, and which, as a result, is going to be met with approval from his editor. I'm always trying to double-check information the best that I can. Now, the truth is, royal household staff talk to each other. I mean, of course they do, just like employees in a shop would, or offices, or factories all over the place. They're going to talk about what's happening at work. There are about 2,000 people who work for the royal family all around the world. Now, 400 of these people work at Buckingham Palace alone. They include security people, advisors, accountants, domestic staff, footmen, chefs, gardeners, plumbers, electricians, chauffeurs. I mean, the list goes on and on. There really aren't any secrets within the palace walls. These people are always telling each other what they've seen, what they've heard. Now, these strong NDAs say that they have to not make money from disclosing information to the media, which, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, if they care about their jobs, they need to stay away from journalists. Even though I know I'm going all around right now, I really am trying to make a point, I promise. I mean, maybe I'm like Meghan Markle in that way. I have been around the block a few times, whatever that means. Anyway, here's what I'm trying to say. I just repeat what I have been told by people who are a lot closer to the action than I am. And that's really as simply as I can put it. The payoff from Charles doesn't have a thing to do with the divorce arrangements. There has been a lot of media fuss over the last few days telling us that Meghan is demanding £50 million or £100 million to walk away. And now $50 million apparently is way below what Meghan is wanting. Now, apparently, Charles is more than happy to pay her £100 million to make her shut up forever, but most importantly, to get rid of this invisible children issue. Charles simply doesn't want the daily onslaught from Meghan, and who can blame him? I mean, he's almost sick with worry right now. He can see the monarchy falling apart before his very eyes. He cannot deal with all the letters that he's getting on a daily basis from the public, who are telling him the children don't exist and should be taken out of the line of succession. He knows good and well they don't exist. Charles never thought in his wildest dreams that being king would be so difficult. And apparently, Charles is receiving conflicting advice from his advisors. Now, they are mostly from the older generation. Nicholas Soames is Charles's closest confidant, and supposedly he is planning Harry's return right now, so he's 75 years old. And then one of the king's youngest advisors is Dr. Serene Ruhi Ahmed. He's 57. I think it's reasonable to ask exactly how much advice the monarch is willing to take from these people. Now, behind palace walls, apparently the figure of £100 million is being discussed. Now, the royal family can easily afford this amount, make no mistake about that. Charles knows that, and so does Meghan. It's important that we never forget that Charles is okay with paying her because the invisible kid's problem will then be put to rest once and for all. And there are some people who simply do not understand how serious this whole problem is. The royal family, just think about it, the royal family has been complicit in putting two invisible kids in the line of succession, two children that at best are not from Meghan's body. And there is no royal who has ever even met these two kids, and they know that Meghan faked the pregnancies. So my money would be on Harry coming back to the royal family, and Meghan's then going to insist that she has to keep those kids with her in America. And the palace just hopes that people will believe this story, and of course they will. and then eventually everybody will forget all about the kids. This is really the only way out for King Charles because thanks to Meghan Markle's lies about Archie and Lilibet, he has been put in such a difficult position. The king and the rest of the family are never again going to have to deal with questions about fake pregnancies or the fake children. And another source has said that the royal family actually has a whole lot to protect. They're not going to want to risk losing everything. Meghan will be paid. They allowed it to be known that there was a bullying investigation. You know, there's no smoke without fire. So basically, they did admit that the staff had been bullied by Meghan. If they didn't find that she had bullied anybody, they wouldn't have had any problem releasing those results. But because they didn't want to do that, we know for sure there was bullying. And they're going to figure out some way to release the information about the children. Either they can just say they just found out the truth and that Harry was coerced into perpetuating this deceit initiated by Meghan, or they can admit that they knew what was going on, but they can say they were just worried about Harry's mental health, which meant they needed to postpone informing the people, and they were relying on expert advice. I think the king, though, should be able to walk away from Meghan Markle without having to pay her a dime. Nobody's going to believe anything she says anymore, so it looks like the royal family would finally be free from her lies. Now, the king is way too intelligent to give her any money to pay for a PR team to keep her name in the news for years to come. Fact is, everybody in the royal family has been waiting this whole time for the end of the marriage. Now, it is best for their future relationship with Harry to just wait until he's had enough of Meghan, and then maybe he'll be ready to admit that whole marriage was a big mistake. They can use concern for his mental health as their excuse for staying quiet about the deception, or they could just deny that they knew about it beforehand. They have had plenty of time to think up a strategy for dealing with this problem. And when the time comes, the palace spin machine is going to be working overtime, so the people are going to blame Meghan instead of the royal family. They wouldn't forget, and the king is going to want to tell the truth at the right time. He is not going to allow Meghan Markle to force him and the rest of the family to live with this big fat lie. There are a few different ways that the king can avoid blame. He can talk about that he was concerned for Harry's mental health and even his personal safety. I think the public would believe either of those explanations. And also, it occurred to me they can just say the invisible children are no longer in the line of succession because verification has proven that after all, they are not eligible. Harry returning home is one thing, but there is no way that William and Catherine are going to put up with Harry being edged back in as a working royal. And I don't even think they're going to try to bring Harry back in as a working royal because he has been so insulting towards the people of the UK, not only his family members. I think the most that Harry can hope for at this point is to be allowed to show up at family events at some point in the future. He cannot possibly expect, though, to benefit from public money, and I can only assume that his father is going to pay for him out of his own pocket. An agreement about this would need to include William for when he finally becomes king. And you, what do you think about this issue? Please tell me your opinion below in the comments section. Remember to like and share my video if you think it's useful. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.